The land of Israel was hurting. For 7 long years, a shadow lay upon it. This shadow was the Midianites. They stole the crops and livestock, leaving Israel with nothing. Fear became a constant companion. God's children hid in caves and mountain strongholds. Their hearts were heavy, their hope dim. They cried out to the Lord, longing for his help once more. In this time of deep despair, God looked for a leader. He found a man named Gideon. Gideon was not a mighty king or a famous warrior. He was the least in his father's family, threshing wheat in a winepress to hide it from the Midianites. An angel of the Lord appeared to him. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior," the angel said. Gideon questioned, "If God is with us, why are these bad things happening?" The angel's message was clear. God had a plan, and Gideon was part of it. "Go in the strength you have," God told him. "Save Israel from the hand of Midian. Am I not sending you?" Gideon asked for a sign and prepared an offering. Fire came from the rock and consumed it. Gideon knew this was God. Fear still lingered, but a seed of faith began to sprout. God was calling him, promising to be with him. The journey ahead would be challenging, but God's presence changed everything. The weakest man in the weakest clan was chosen to show God's mighty power. Gideon was ready to answer the call. Gideon, now filled with fragile courage, sounded the call. 32,000 soldiers gathered, ready to face the Midianites. But God had a different plan. "You have too many men," he said. God explained, "I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me." So the first reduction began. Gideon announced, "Anyone who trembles with fear may turn back." 22,000 men left, leaving 10,000. God said, "There are still too many men." He was teaching Gideon a vital lesson. Victory belongs to the Lord. Gideon obeyed, trusting God's strange command. The stage was being set for a miracle. God wanted Israel to know that their victory would come from his power, not their numbers. The odds were already looking impossible, but God was not finished yet. He was testing Gideon's faith. Gideon watched as the army shrank, but he obeyed. He trusted God's plan, even when it seemed illogical. The remaining men were ready for the next test. God was preparing to show his glory. The lesson was clear. It does not depend on human might, but on divine might. Gideon's faith was being refined. The miracle was about to unfold. God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Gideon was ready to follow God's lead. God gave Gideon another test. He told Gideon to take the remaining men down to the water. "Separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps," God instructed. Gideon led the men to the water's edge. Most knelt down, putting their faces into the water, but a small group scooped water with their hands, lapping it like a dog. These men remained alert, watching their surroundings. Only 300 men lapped the water from their hands. God said, "With the 300 men that lapped, I will save you." Gideon must have been astonished. 300 men against an enemy that covered the valley. It seemed impossible, but it was God's perfect plan. These men were chosen for their watchfulness and readiness. They were not chosen for their strength or skill with a sword. They showed they could stay vigilant even in a simple act like drinking. This quality was crucial for the strategy God was about to reveal. God looks at the heart. He sees what others miss. He empowers the few. Gideon was ready to lead these 300 watchful men. With his tiny army of 300, Gideon prepared for battle. God gave him a very specific, very unusual plan. Each man was given a trumpet, an empty clay jar, and a hidden torch. Under the cover of darkness, Gideon divided his men into 3 companies. They surrounded the vast Midianite camp. The enemy was asleep, feeling secure in their numbers. Gideon gave his instructions. "Watch me, follow my lead. When I blow the trumpet, you blow your trumpets. When I shout, you shout." The tension was immense. Then the moment came. In the dead of night, Gideon blew his trumpet and smashed his jar. The hidden torch blazed brightly. He shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" The other men did the same. Suddenly the night was shattered. 300 trumpets blared. 300 jars smashed. 300 torches flared up all around the camp. The Midianites awoke in terror, surrounded by noise and light. Panic erupted in the Midianite camp. They began to fight each other in the darkness and chaos. God caused this confusion. Gideon's men simply stood their ground, holding their torches high and blowing their trumpets. They watched as God delivered the victory. The mighty Midianite army defeated itself. It was a triumph of faith, not force. Gideon's victory was complete. The Midianites fled in disarray, pursued by the Israelites. The land was finally free from their oppression. This victory was not Gideon's alone, it was God's victory. He used a small, fearful man and a tiny, unlikely army. He used unconventional weapons to show his power. Faith was the key. Gideon had to trust God's strange instructions. The 300 men had to trust Gideon. Their obedience unlocked God's mighty intervention. The story of Gideon and his 300 men teaches us that God can use anyone. He looks for a willing heart and obedience. God's plans might seem illogical or impossible, but his ways are always perfect. Reducing the army seemed like a mistake, but it was God's way of ensuring he received all the glory. The impact on Israel was profound. After this great victory, the land had rest for 40 years. Peace settled over the towns and villages. Gideon became a respected leader. The people wanted to make him king, but Gideon refused. "I will not rule over you," he told them, "and the Lord will rule over you." Gideon's story reminds us that with God all things are possible. It shows that faith, even a little faith, can move mountains. God is still looking for those who will trust him. His light still shines in the darkness.